Oh, Mac! Yeah, but coming up on stage next, since Haas isn't here yet, it's gonna be me. But first, a stupid joke. I get somebody being bisexual, but if you're bisexual and you don't have anybody you're dating, does that just make you by yourself?
Okay, happy.
All right, coming up on stage next is me! Put your hands together for me. It's easy to feel depressed. Everybody's life has things going on. Everybody has people they love die or get old or move away or stop talking to them. Sure, there's good moments, but sometimes in everybody's life, you feel like everything is fucking up and just you wonder why you even exist and why you should go on. Especially if you're not altogether there. I'm pretty ADHD and I have friends who are depressed, who are bipolar. My brother killed himself because he was bipolar. These things are part of us, and sometimes they feel like you're wearing anchors on every limb, dragging down to the bottom of the sea. So I want to give you a rope back to the surface. It's kind of a weird rope to hand out. But the rope I'm going to give you is genetics. Every single one of you is alive because you come from somebody who fucking made it. And they came from people who fucking made it. And back and back and back. Did you know that there is less variation in all of the genetic material of all of mankind than there is in one state's worth of squirrels? That's because 15, 20,000 years ago, there were only about 10,000 Homo sapiens left. The world wasn't great. We weren't super great at anything yet. We hadn't developed smartphones, so it was pretty rough. But they survived. And from that survival, they expanded and they began conquering everything, taking over, figuring out the world, understanding their place, and using these gigantic brains we had. But not just these gigantic brains, these gigantic fucked up brains of ours. It's easy to look at ourselves right now in the place where we are in time and think, Jesus, this depression's brutal, or fuck, my ADD makes it impossible for me to hold down a job, or I've got all of these problems. But every single one of these things was in here for a reason. Natural selection takes a lot of the worst shit out, and somehow those were still here. So why? It's because sometimes there are reasons that maybe now, in this 9 to 5 world that we live in, or 8 to 10, 30 world that we live in, these things aren't great. But fuck man, this is just a snapshot in a 40,000 year history. Your ADD made it really easy for you to be constantly watching out for predators or for something coming and getting you. Your depression may really suck, but perhaps it helped some of your ancestors get through times that any sane motherfucker would have killed themselves in. Every single thing. Your schizophrenia, your bipolar, you know what? Each of those things comes with some small advantage. Sickle cell anemia. Do you know why it persists, even though it kills thousands of people every year? Because it makes you more resistant to malaria, and in the places where sickle cell anemia is, that's a worse thing than sometimes having a kid die from sickle cell. You are the product of a long line of motherfuckers who made it in spite of these things, or because of these things. And it's really tough to look back and think that this is what all of these survivors produce. Like, great, I'm a crowning fucking achievement. But you are! You are wearing, like, those stupid Banana Republic generals just line after line after line of medals for things that you don't even know about. But motherfucker, you survived. You are here because you come from a long line of people who made it. Somewhere, somebody dragged their muddy, cold ass out of a flood river and said, well, looks like I gotta rebuild a life, even though everyone I know is dead. One of your ancestors somehow walked away from a village that was burning in the distance, raiders taking everything they had off into the distance, and winter approaching, and they went, I'll figure out a way. And they did. Somewhere, someone walked out of a city that was just full of flies and corpses, and somehow was still alive because your motherfucking genetics made you immune to this particular disease, or at least a little more immune. In that case, that's all it took. And they brushed themselves off and said, well, I'm going to start again. We're at a time in history where it feels like there's not just one apocalypse or two apocalypses. Like everywhere you look, there's some terrible fucking thing that's looming over us. And it feels like this is unique to ourselves, and in some ways it is. But in other ways, we've done this shit before. It might not seem like it, but you have come from a long line of people who just kind of shrugged this shit off and gone and done another day. And maybe that'll help, or maybe it fucking won't. But you can't deny that you're only here because every single one of your ancestors, back to the first little fucking four-limbed fish that crawled out flopping into the mud, said, yeah, I can do this. And you can too. There's nothing that this life can throw at you that you can't work your way through. Okay, there's a few things, hyperbolic, but most of the things you're going to face in your life can really fucking suck. But just know that you are the toolbox that has all the pieces you need, even if sometimes it does not seem like it. So give yourself a break. Let go of the anchors holding at the bottom of the ocean. Give yourself a fucking break. But remember, you got this. You're the result of 1,000 generations of motherfucking winter.